for the international film review assignment, I did mine on the film The Terminal, starring Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks in this movie stars as, he's not necessarily an immigrant, but he comes from a country called Crocosia, and he comes over to get a signature from a famous musician. And on his trip to the United States, he, without his knowledge, there is a civil war that breaks out in Crocosia, which is his home, and he finds himself in a situation where he is not seen as a citizen to any country to Homeland Security in the United States. So Homeland Security says that he cannot enter the United States and cannot let him leave the JFK airport. And he also cannot fly back to his home because it is not seen as a nation at the moment because of the Civil War. The new regime is not seen as a country. So while he has to stay at the JFK airport until the problem is resolved, when either the Civil War in Crocosia is solved or there is a solution that Homeland Security can figure out for him to either go back home or for him to either enter the United States. He entered the airport with no money, so he had no money for food, and there was no shelter for him at the airport. So he had to get blankets for himself to sleep and figure out and adapt to survive. First thing he did was he needed a way to get food. So he realized he saw a woman exchange carts that she found all around the airport, and when you turn them in, you get quarters. So he would turn as many carts as he could in order to get quarters for food so he can survive and not starve to death. Another big obstacle he faced was his language barrier. As he was from Crocosia, he spoke almost no English, as when people talked to him, he would mostly only say yes, not understanding what they would say. For example, when he was talking to Mr. Dixon, who was a Homeland Security agent at the airport, he was trying to tell Victor about a situation where he cannot leave the airport and go into the United States, but also cannot go home. And when watching the film, you realize it doesn't look like Victor understands what's going on. He doesn't see that there's a problem until he just notices that he's not allowed to leave the airport, which is where he goes outside of the office and sees on the TV what is going on in his home country of Crocosia, where there's a civil war outbreak and it is not seen as a country anymore. And he was very sad for what's going on there, as he still has a lot of family and he cares about his country. Well, as he still figures out more problems, as he can't talk to anybody and he can't get information from anyone, as he cannot speak with them, and everything's written in English. He starts to learn the English language because he knows it would be very helpful to him as he stays in the airport. At first, he starts to learn from the subtitles on the news and the way that the broadcasters would pronounce the words. And then he got to find a magazine that was in his native language, and he also found the same magazine in English. He got to match up those magazines and figure out how to pronounce certain words in English from how they are in his native country. That helped him really learn English, and he was able to interact with others successfully and actually communicate with them and get real answers to questions he has and things that could benefit him. And while he did overcome many of his challenges, he did end up getting a job to earn more money as a construction worker at the airport, but was getting paid under the table, so it wasn't seen as he had a job because there was no way for him to get a real job with him technically not being a citizen to any country. These problems he faced were very much caused because of the culture that he's a part of, and it is not very prevalent in the United States, and especially not at the JFK airport where he was staying. It is mostly people who speak English and many other people that are traveling, and very rarely see someone that could speak the same language as him. As he was found one time, they needed a translator for a Russian. It was a traveler, and they suspected he had drugs on him, and no one could talk to him because there was no translator, just how there was no translator for Victor. and he was able to translate for the man and being able to save him, saying that he had goat medicine instead of illegal medicine that could not be brought in the United States. Overcoming these challenges was very hard for Victor, and there weren't very many things he could do, and very many like ways he could figure out how to overcome these problems, but he did, and in the end he got back to his home country where he didn't have to face those problems and being locked in the airport anymore.